Welcome to the Wealthy Dentist Podcast, where we explore how top dentists are building incredible businesses. I'm your host, Ward Powell. Let's dive in. Brad Hughes, thank you so much for joining us today. We really appreciate you taking the time to spend time with us today. A lot of our listeners come in and they want to hear about what are the other dentists doing and what have they done to be successful in the area in which they work. And we wanted to hear from you. And with that, I just want to ask you to start with, what got you involved in the field of dentistry?
Yeah, no, first of all, it's like, I'm super excited. I appreciate you having me on today, Ward. This will be fun. So, I'm a third generation dentist. So, like what got me involved, I have no idea. It was just like the innate, I literally never wanted to do anything else. It was like either play in the NBA or be a dentist. And like, I'm 5'10" and I don't jump out of the gym. I so dentistry it is. So, it's just one of those things, like growing up around it was, I had no idea really what I was seeing, but like just seeing my dad being such a cool part of a community. Like he was the only dentist in a town of 4,000 people. It was the town that I grew up in. Like it just, like I just, for whatever reason, like that just appealed to me. And it wasn't like something I just sat around and said, gosh, like that's what I want to do. I knew that like he was such a big part of the community. He knew so many people, whether it was, going to church or whether, playing sports everywhere we went. He just knew everybody. And he was so charismatic. And, I think that I was just drawn to that. Like, I really like the people aspect of what we do. And I didn't know anything about what dentistry was, right? Like I really had no idea, but it was, I took off for college at Indiana University for undergrad. And I distinctly remember driving down to have my parents drop me off. And my dad's literally like, what are you going to major in? And I'm like, biology. He's like, well, what the hell do you want to do? And I said, I want to be a dentist. And he's like, oh, okay, cool. So, at that point it was like game on. And so I think it was just like seeing him, my grandfather who like, he just loved, they both just loved being a dentist and being part of their respective communities. And, I, for whatever reason, it's either in my DNA or I genuinely just think I just saw them being very respected and getting to be around people and being big parts of their, just had a lot of influence with the people that they were surrounded, that they were around. So it's what I wanted to do.
So how many years have you been in it?
Yeah. So as of just a couple of days ago, we started year 18. So 17 full years. We're now into year 18. Graduated from 2007 from Indiana University School of Dentistry. It's just been a good ride since then. And, we've figured it out. We've net one along the way. And every day is a new journey and new experience. And but it's been good. It's been really fun and very fulfilling and very, very rewarding.
Great. So like 17, almost 18 years now into the business, and you look back and any hiccups?
Oh gosh. Yeah. How much time do we have? Like it's I would say, I'm pretty open about early on. It was, the big mistake early on was like, hey, you think you're 27, 28, 29. You're like, hey, I'm just gonna, everybody just, let's strap this on my back and we're just gonna go. And just not really realizing, look, like you got to build team along the way. It can't just be one individual. It can't be, there's an ego aspect to that. There's no question. So I think it was just, it was massively getting that smack in the face at one point where I'm like, look, you got to build team. You got to be a better leader. You've got to get to the point where you're building up those around you and not just saying, get on my back. I'll get this thing where we need to go.
That is so
that
true.
doesn't work.
Yeah, you're right.
And I didn't know that, right? Like it was, throughout school, it was just like, look, you're competing, but you're competing one on whatever against everybody else for grades and this. And then, and I played sports and growing up, and, we part of teams, but even with team sports, sometimes like you get the best athletes that can kind of carry other people. I guess the point is it's just a little ego early on. Like let's go build teams. And I wasn't doing that. So I think that's probably one. I think the second one probably would be, as we've grown, from like one practice to 10 practices now in our group, know who you're getting into bed with as partners. When you do an acquisition, I think we've really learned really, like we're not 400 practices in where it's like, let's just, I shouldn't say this because it's a little ignorant because I don't know what it's like to have 400 practices, but I can't imagine that they care quite as much as I do in terms of who we're going out to acquire. We've made the mistake where there have been some poor culture fits and maybe just not the best fit for our company. And so I think we do a better job of that now.
That's awesome. So humility knocked on the door, and then you had some areas in which you figured that, I mean, like working together is, I mean, as a team is I mean, like if you want to grow,
Yeah.
you got to do that. If not, then you're just gonna stay in the same spot forever, right?
Yep.
Perpetuity. So,
Yep.
so that
Right.
was great to share. So, what would you say? How would you debunk the misconceptions that people have about dentistry?
Yeah, I probably the biggest one is, and maybe this is like, maybe it seems super obvious, but I don't know that most people get to what extent I mean by this. Like most people think being a dentist is you're doing a crown, you're doing a filling, you're doing a root canal, you're doing an extraction, you're placing an implant. Like those are all fine things. Yes, like we have the skill set to do that. But in my opinion, that makes you like, if you can do those things, that's great. You're a very good technician. But to be a good dentist, you've got to have that leadership ability. You've got to be able to lead your patients. You've got to be able to really lead your teams, influence your patients, be part of a community. Those are the most successful dentists that I've seen. Those are the successful dentists that are growing groups to incredible levels. They're growing practices to incredible levels. So like, especially young doctors are like, oh, I'm a dentistry, like I'm gonna get faster at doing crowns, I'm gonna do this, I'm gonna do that. Like that's great, but that doesn't make you a dentist. I really just believe that being a good dentist, you're a leader in your practice, you're incredibly influential with your patient base and in your community. I just think there's a little bit of a myth that it's like, yeah, like you do fillings all day. And it's like, well, yeah, no, like we manage teams, we lead teams. If we have 50 patients coming into a practice that day, like you better become pretty influential with those patients. And it's a people game. It's not a drill game. It's not a drill a hole in bone or in teeth or do a crown game. It is 100% a people industry. And I think that gets a little commoditized sometimes because things have become so insurance driven in a lot of cases. But there are still a whole hell of a lot of patients out there that really do value that relationship, the trust. And I know that maybe it gets a little less every year. Like I don't have data to support that. You kind of feel like the insurance stuff is kind of taking over a little bit more than it was even just a few years ago. And we certainly have practices that are very sort of PPO driven, but I just think it's just a people game, and we've become things have become a little commoditized, but the great leaders and the most influential dentists in their practices and their communities are really the ones that are they're the golden children, and they're still doing very, very well. As margins shrink, the leaders are the ones that are doing very, very well.
So with that said, I'm wondering what a day looks like for you in terms of balancing your day. I mean, how much is it actual doing what you do? You spend all these years learning, and how much of it is actually into the business part of it?
Yeah. Um, it's a ridiculous mix of both right now, actually. Like it's not a good mix of both.
Mm.
Um, I've kind of labeled, or I've kind of heard some people that I really respect in the group industry, in the group space, sort of label sort of where we're at, that like 10 practice, certain revenue spot, like the dark tunnel, right? Like you're not so big that you're like completely away from the clinical side, but you're like too big to not have a lot of administrative CEO type responsibilities. And it's a tough spot. I mean, it really is. Like, for those people that think, hey, you're just going to package some practices together and you're going to go arbitrage this and just flip
Mm.
it and make money, like those days are just completely done. And that's not the game. Like, we're really building a foundation. We're building an organization and a company that's based around genuinely building teams and building young doctors and being incredibly influential in our communities. And I'm currently still working 4 days a week, and between patients, I'm answering text messages and
Mm.
emails and looking at x-rays that other dentists are sending me. So my day is like 70% patients and 30% in between patients, where it's a lot of emails and phone calls and things of that nature. And then it's, meeting with my HR director in the evening to talk about interviews that he had that day, to talk about, just anything and everything, or with my director of marketing or my director of operations. So, you kind of go from like a single practice and you're playing golf 3 days a week on the weekends to working 5 or 6 days a week now. And four of those are clinical and administrative. So, because I mean, as in my role, on the organizational charge, the CEO, like the only things that are coming my way, like I've got a phenomenal team. I mean, they make me and our company look great every single day, but that means the only things that are coming to me are usually the shit. So, um, it is what it is, and that's the role I've signed up for. But I will say, like in September, I am moving to 2 days a week. So
Oh.
like today happens to be June 14th. So I've got a few months. I'm moving to 2 days a week. And then, we're gonna probably scale back a little bit from there, hopefully within maybe another 8 or 12 months after that. So the duties of the CEO role are just, there's a lot. And as we continue to scale, and we'll look to do more acquisitions and de novos over the next 12 to 16 months, that I need to be in that role more than I do the clinical side. So right now it's sort of a non-balanced mix, as I'm kind of in that dark tunnel, so to speak, of like, just put your head down and just go,
Mm.
and just keep grinding until we get to that other side.
Mm. Mm. Wow, I'm sure there's a lot of people that would like to be like a fly on the wall to figure out how are you making these moves and eventually coming into like like you said, to 2 days a week. What does that look like? You know what I mean? Wow, that man, that I know it's massive.
It's it will be a good reprieve, but it will it's going to open up about 40 more things that I'm probably not doing very well now, because I don't have the
Oh,
time that I
yeah.
that I really want to get into. And probably the biggest one of that, honestly, is like my biggest passion at this point is just genuinely taking younger doctors and building them up, coaching, mentoring, communicating with as often as they need, having a good cadence with them. So it's going to free me up a little bit more to do that, which there's just something special about watching a doctor. Like we've got a young doctor that spent a month with me, in my practice last
Mhm.
summer. Watching her journey, just as one example, watching her journey over the last, really 11 months, kind of start here and then just kind of keep going up and up. And she just keeps doing a little better every month. And we just keep replicating that, and that to me is really where my passion lies. And I love that, because it's just, we talked about team earlier. um it's just fun to see people and team members, whether doctors, hygienists, whatever, but hit goals and really understand that. Again, it's how do I build relationships and not just solely focus on having a handpiece in my hand. And it's really been a fun thing to be able to coach a lot of younger doctors on. So
So then, Brad, tell me this: do you all like, as CEO? I mean, what is the philosophy and core value picture looks like? Is that something that you kind of like put in front of everybody, or just a few of your special team members? I don't want to say special is the correct word, but the people that you want to make sure they understand this is what we stand on.
yep, everybody, every single team member, every single team member. In fact, to the point where we do reviews around our core values every 90 days.
Oh.
And I think it's changed the landscape of, like, so, you asked a great question, like, what have you screwed up over the last 17 years? Like, I didn't go to that early enough. We just started doing a cadence of every 90 days, literally doing reviews around core values and core value fit. And so it's every single team member in the company. And I mean, it's changed the conversations that we have on a daily, weekly, monthly basis now. And they know we're serious about it. And we are very serious about it. They're not just buzzwords that we plant up on a break room wall somewhere and nobody really cares. Like, we genuinely live these things out every day.
Mm-hmm.
Our core values, we have 4 of them, one of them being action,
Okay.
will to win, bring the fire, and close the gap. And
Yes.
so, we genuinely, every 90 days, it's got to be every 90 days. And we have we're doing a big event actually next week, a week from today. Our Indiana offices, we have 7 practices in Indiana. We've invited everybody to get together. We're doing kind of a team summit. We're giving out awards. So we're in 3 different states: Indiana, South Carolina, and Georgia. And so the Indiana practices are going to get together, and we're giving out awards literally around core values. So we've got someone who's winning the action award. We've got someone who's winning the will to win award. And we just talk about these things all the time. And that's how we recruit. That's how we, it's the first thing we talk about. Like, look, okay, you've been a dental assistant for 9 years. That's great. But how do you align with these 4 core values? And let's talk about these, because if you don't, like, I'm sure you're a great dental assistant, but you're not going to be a good fit for us. And vice versa. Like, maybe you've been a dental assistant for 3 months, but if you're a great core value fit, let's go.
Wow. So, speaking about core values, I just want to just go off the pace or the scheme of this particular interview and just ask, if I may, so what sport do you play, or did you play?
Yeah.
Or still playing, but the body's not there, but the mind's however you want to put it.
What are you saying, Ward? Now that I'm 44, I'm like not as good as yeah. I get it. You're on to something here. So like, I mean, I grew up in Indiana, right? So like, every person that grows up in Indiana, like, if you're not a basketball fan, like, you probably should leave the state. And so like, growing up, I mean, that's what I did. I mean, it didn't matter if there was 6 inches of snow on the ground, or it was 52 degrees and raining sideways, or it was 88 degrees and sunny in the summer. Like, you find a hoop and you go play. And played baseball growing up, basketball, golf, all those things. But, the main one I still play now is golf. I've still, I've got young kids now, and between work and, I've got almost 5-year-old twin daughters. And so I don't play as much as I would have liked to. But at one point, just within the last couple of years, I was still playing to a pretty low handicap, competing in some pretty nice high level amateur events. And we'll get back to it here eventually. I've got at least one, maybe both of my girls have kind of shown some interest this summer that they want to start going out there. So like, that will be my excuse to go, okay, like, we're out, like, after work, we're going to the golf course, we're going to go hit some balls or something.
Awesome.
But so I mean, I played golf since I was 5 years old. So I was just about their age when I started. And, it's always been a fun thing for me. Like, my dad and I have played in a lot of member guest events together and father son events. just a lot of fun, cool stuff there. And um, so golf is still kind of the one I still teed up every now and again, but we'll get back to a high level here at some point.
See, bringing the fire just kind of sticks out in my head. That's exactly why I asked you about the sports thing, because I know I'm not a gambling man, but I would almost bet you came up with that thought.
Yeah. Yeah. That like some of the other ones were yeah, like there were other like team members who were like that like we kind of took like all these words that really make us who we are. I think at the core, we kind of brought them together, and it was like like genuinely love that bring the fire. So I mean,
Yeah,
again, like so I went to Indiana University.
yeah,
I mean, Bobby Knight was like my religion
yeah.
growing
He
up.
brought the fire.
He brought the fire. And I mean that literally like I applied to one undergrad coming out of Leo High School in Indiana. I was like, I'm going to Indiana University. Like I had some like Division II schools that maybe wanted me to play golf there, and I'm like, nah, I'm going to Indiana University, man. Like I'm going to I'm going to watch basketball games, and I'm gonna go do this. And so it was. I mean, I'm a little bit of a weirdo in the sense. So Coach Knight got fired. It was either my sophomore or junior year at IU, and then Coach Davis took over, and they had open practices at that point. Coach Knight would not allow anybody to come practice. But so in 2000, the 2001, 2002 season, in 2002 is when IU went to the Final Four, lost to Maryland in the final game with Juan Dixon and some of the players they had. And we had like Dane Fife, Jared Jeffries, Tom Coverdale, Jared Odell, these guys, Jeff Newton, George Leach. I went to practice every day.
Wow.
I knew the offense as well as those guys did. I made my schedule up around the fact that I didn't have class when they had practice. So I'm like, I'm going to assembly hall every day. So yeah, like basketball is a little bit of a love it. Love it, love it, love it. But Indiana basketball is still kind of my religion. And yeah, bring the fire is a good one. We like that one, and we love team members that can show up consistently every day. They've got energy. They're not moping around. They're not complaining about having to go to work, and they're not complaining about having to adult, and they're not complaining about having to, actually be part of a team. Like those folks that can show up and bring some energy and bring some fire. Phenomenal. Phenomenal.
Okay, I see that. I hear it, and that's wonderful. Let me ask you this. What are some of the what do you think about some of the technology they're using today? And is there anything that you can see coming up in the near future that's going to be big within your system?
Yeah, I mean, I think one of the biggest things, there's all kinds of fun gadgets, and I mean, obviously like digital scanners, all that stuff. I mean, some of this stuff's been around a little while. I mean, CBCT we utilize. We've got a lot of doctors that place implants and utilize it for endo, things of that nature. But I think the big one is going to be the AI with the radiographs, with X-rays. I think having, again, if we're going back to just it's about the patients, and we're creating influence with patients. Who doesn't want to have an AI overlay on an X-ray showing where there's decay? I mean, it's a quick second opinion, and let's be honest, like the AI is not going to be. I mean, from what I've seen, like it's unbelievable. We have not implemented it into our group yet. We will, hopefully within probably within the next 6 months. Like it's that above all, where you can pull up an X-ray, it's going to show bone level, it's going to show areas of decay. That patient who, we've all for X amount of years sitting there pointing at things on an X-ray going, do you see that thing? Like that's a cavity. Like, they don't see anything. They're like, sure, man. Like
Gray
whatever.
and white, baby. That's
Yeah,
all I
like,
see.
like whatever, man. Like, okay, cool.
Don't
like,
do it.
yeah, like what time is it? Like I play tennis. So I'll get it scheduled and I'll be back. But like having the ability to, whether it's purple or red, whatever it shows up, depending on the system, whether it's overjet or whatever, that's unbelievable to me. And I know it's like there's a lot of it in the medical side when it comes to diagnosing, and they're using AI to read all kinds of X-rays and things, which I think is awesome. But it takes out the human element. I mean, and for the most part, like that's probably a good thing. I mean, let's be honest. Like I see things that get missed all the time. Like new patients come in, I'm like, yeah, I don't know what, or whatever. I mean, and young doctors like being comfortable talking about the fact the patient has 4 or 5 areas of decay, or even sometimes just one area of decay. Like it makes it so easy.
Mm-hmm.
Boom, it's right on the X-ray.
Mm-hmm.
They just go, "Yep, I agree," and you show the patient, and off they go. I think that's game changing. I really do. I understand completely why all these groups or single practices have gone to that, and we absolutely will. We've got plans to do so here in fairly short order. I think it's amazing. I think it's so great.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. So what would you share with the young dentists? I mean, you've been speaking about them. One of the things that sticks out to you most when you do have an opportunity, as you help that young lady, the young dentist you were speaking about earlier, what are some of the what are some of the first thoughts that come to your mind that you want to help them with? And I know that's probably a tricky question because all situations can be different, right?
But I think there's one thing that stands out the most, and it's just, and I mean, I've literally been having this conversation. We've got a new grad that just started with us within the last week and a half,
Okay.
and we've got another one who starts here in about a month, and it'll be the same conversation.
Okay.
It's relationships.
Mm,
Understand that number one, patients pay attention to everything. So your body language, your words, your facial expressions, the way you dress, the way your hair looks, everything matters because it's all influence. It's all and all of those things also affect the relationships with the patients. And just understand you're in a people game, and your dentistry. I mean, I don't care. I mean, and maybe some dentists will disagree. I don't know. I find it hard to believe, and if they do, it's probably just ego. Like we've all looked back at things that we did early on, and we're like, there's a few things every now and again you're like, well, that was kind of shitty. Like I'll cut a crown off I did 10 years ago, and I'm like, yeah, that was like okay, or maybe 15 years ago, maybe not 10 years ago, but like 15 years ago, you're like, that was like okay, but I'm like, I would have done this a little differently now. Like the dentistry will come. You'll get faster, you'll get better, but like the relationship part, you got to get right early on. You just got to get it right. And if you can get it right, and you can understand influence and how words matter, body language matter, and not just your own, but understanding the patient's words, the patient's values, the patient's body language. Like, your influence will just exponentially grow, which will help your case acceptance, which really at the end of the day is kind of a great measure of do your patients like you or not, and do they trust you or not? Are they doing the things that you're asking them to do? And I think a lot of doctors struggle early on, especially with case acceptance, just because they think it's about the dentistry. They have a 10-minute dissertation to the patient about what a crown prep looks like, instead of understanding, look, the patient has a problem. What are you going to do to solve it? That's it. That's all you got to tell them. Here's your problem. Here's what I'm going to do to fix it. I'm going to solve your problem. Let's move on with life. And, there's a little nuance to that, but I mean, that's the gist of it. And I think we just forget that human element and that relationship side, because it's, the same mistake I made. You got a little doctor title in front of your name and ego kicks in a little bit. And you think people are going to do what you're asking them to do. And sometimes they do. And sometimes they don't, but
right.
just you gotta drop the ego and just understand you're kind of starting from scratch, especially early on. And just be okay with taking some lumps, but just keep jumping back in and keep doing what is best for the patients.
100%. Having that human element is just absolutely a must, right? Because you're going to want to not only screen the patient or let the patient screen you, but you want to screen the patient. There might be something there in your value system that doesn't match.
Yep.
Maybe this would be a win-win kind of situation for neither. So you might say, hey, okay, maybe I give you a referral, refer
Mhm.
you, but not
100%. I mean, especially when you start getting into a patient comes in, they need a root canal number 19. You've only done 10 of these. Like, is that a good patient for you to be doing your 11th root canal on, or is it not? Is
Mm.
that patient, like, is that human being, meaning like, is this going to be a tricky patient here? Maybe the two spot, like, yeah, like understand, like really understanding the human side, and who should you be doing work on and who should you not be doing work on.
Hmm. 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 Wow. Yes, yes, yes. So so what do you do when you get up in the morning? And what is, by the time you hit the end of the day, how many things have you, I mean, I know this can be many probably, but how many things that you generally do each day? And what does that look like?
Um, well, I mean, I'm far from Jeff Bezos here, but or Elon Musk. I mean, there's no question. Um, typical day, I'm probably up at 6. I try to, most days if I'm doing clinical work, I'm starting at 7 a.m. And so, for me, which is a great time, I'm like, I love my early morning patients and my coffee. So it's that, but genuinely, like, I have a controller in our company who's up at like 3:30, 4 a.m. every day. So by the time I'm up, she's probably already texted me 3 or 4 times and she sent a few emails. So after I've numbed and probably prepped my 7 a.m. patient, that's when I'm usually diving into Desiree's stuff that she has, because she's just a beast who just like gets after it. And which is great because she, that just a rare human being. But so I'm typically getting to her stuff, and then usually throughout the morning at some point I'm checking in with our director of operations, Mikkel, through text, through phone conversations, just doing the normal patient stuff along the way. um, you know I, we usually don't take lunch breaks. We kind of just eat whenever. And then we're usually done between 4:30 and 5. At that point, it's like, what haven't I been able to get to? Like, what's on my list? Who do I need to call?
Mhm.
Who do I need to? We use an app called Voxer that's kind of like a communication tool that we can leave messages for each other on the management team or whomever. Whether that's communicating with our COO, or that's communicating with Jason in HR, whether that's communicating with Mikkel in operations. So, or Mike in marketing. And at that point, it's just catch up. I might have 45 minutes of stuff to just get done that I wasn't able to get to throughout the day yet. Um, it's hard to pinpoint in the micro exactly, like, because usually it's just like, hey, I need your decision on this, or I need an answer to this, or we dealt with these 3 things, but the 4th thing we need your opinion on, or whatever. So I'm usually done about 5:30, go home, play around, mess around with the girls. At that point, if we're going to have meetings in the evening, it's going to be usually after they go to bed. So like 8:30.
Mhm.
At that point, it's usually like get back to text messages. Like last night, Jason and I were working on a contract for a young doctor until maybe 10:30. Um, and from 8:30 to 10:30, and then and working with Desiree a little bit on some event stuff for the event that we're doing in a week. And then it was go to bed and get up the next morning, and management meeting was first thing in the morning, and off we go. So I mean, nothing crazy, nothing wild. It's just patience, and it's just a lot of communicating with team. It's just things that come up. I mean, when you've got a lot going on in operations, I think we've got maybe 100 team members in the company. There's going to be things that come up on a daily, whether it's HR stuff. And we spend a lot of time on recruitment. I mean, if you've got 5 positions that are open, that's they probably average 12 interviews per opening or so. So I mean, Jason's got a lot of information to relay to me to after he kind of narrows things down to one or two, and he'll sometimes ask, we'll run through things together, get my opinion about the recruitment side. So just a lot of that. Like that's a very broad macro answer, I guess, but
No,
it's
that
just
was great because I mean, like, I know there are going to be dentists who want to know. I mean, like, how does that day look like? You have a lot of responsibility with 10 offices, and
yeah,
you're still active CEO of the business and still doing 4 and 5 days a week
yeah,
with the
if you
chair. I
want,
mean, that's quite a bit.
yeah, if you want to be done at 5 o'clock, like don't go grow a group. If you want to have Fridays off so that you can go like, play pickleball, like probably don't grow a group. And I don't say that because like, again, I'm not Elon Musk here where I'm up all night, like tweeting at people or whatever. And,
Right.
like this is, but we're just at a point where we're just bootstrapping the hell out of this thing and we're just putting in a ton of work. And I have to work my ass off because I got a bunch of team members that do. Like I genuinely have a phenomenal management team, and I know that I have to go as hard as I can because they do, and that's our culture that we
Yes,
have. And
yes.
we're at a point again, like you get to a point where like if we added more people, like there's just not enough money coming into the management team yet. So we're probably a little, like that's just where we're at. You just can't keep adding people. So we're like a little, I don't want to say understaffed, but we're like everybody's got to work their ass off. And then as we grow, we'll be able to add some more people and it'll kind of balance out a little bit more. That's just where we are. Like when we're smaller, it's a lot easier. When we're bigger, we'll have a little bigger team and less, a couple of people have a little less responsibility, and that'll be really good. But right now it's just go, go, go. And, you just get used to it like anything else, and I think we have great purpose and we have great vision and we have really good core values around what we're doing. And I think that I genuinely think that's what we at least it's why I get up every day. And it's like, let's go get after it.
That's wonderful because, like now what I'm thinking about with you sharing your journey, what I think about is other dentists who they want to know or have an idea. You have some dentists out there, they go on vacation and all they're thinking about is how much business they're losing,
Yeah.
you know. And so at what point do you see or did you see yourself getting away from that thought? And I mean, I guess in a nutshell, I mean, how did you get there? I know it's a whole lot of stuff there, but just a little trinket, if you will.
I Here's how I sort of overcame that. And I don't know that I'm just going to be transparent and authentic. Like, I don't know that I'm 100% there.
Okay.
I mean, I don't, but I'm way more there than I used to be.
Hmm.
For instance, I was off last week
Hmm.
and I'm actually taking 2 weeks off this summer. I took a week off last week and I'm taking a week off in 2 weeks. I've never done that. But what I committed to myself back in February, there were some things that I committed to my team in terms of some training, some coaching, some clinical work that I was going to do. That was way more than I was doing prior to that point. So I knew March, April, May was going to be a ton of work. I was going to be traveling to our Indiana practices on a weekly basis. I mean, I'm in South Carolina. I was traveling up there, which, by the way, that's like where I started. I practiced in Indiana for 11 years, and then we came down here 6 years ago. I committed to do that, knowing that I'm going to put in a ton of work for me. Like it's going to be 70 hours plus a week. But at the end of that rainbow, I'm going to take this time and I'm going to go enjoy it. And, I told my wife, I'm like, look, it's going to be a lot of time, but I'm going to take this time. Like when I'm gone, like we're on vacation. I'm not working 2 hours a day. Cause that would kind of be the way it was. Like we'd go and I'm like, I'm like, we go down to Miami and I'm like waking up on a Saturday morning. I got my laptop out on a balcony somewhere and I'm like doing work or something. It's like, no, I'm off. So I really, and so I think the way I get around it is like, I'm going to commit to a goal for the next 90 days. And then it's not that I deserve it, because I don't really believe that shit. It's just that I'm going to go put in the work, and then I'm taking the time, and that's going to be like the mental reset, because I know there's going to eventually be a point where I got to put in that work again, and I need to be physically and mentally prepared to go do it.
I love that. Yeah, that's the best way I guess you could look at it. I mean, they're going to definitely love that approach. I like that. So appreciate that. So I guess, at this point, I mean, I just want to know where or what can you share with the dinner community out there today that we haven't shared already? Because you've shared quite a bit already. And I just what did we miss that you could share with them that you definitely want to say to them?
I think, if you're talking early, younger dentists, it's a consistency game.
Mhm.
Just be consistent. We talk about it all the time. It's your dentistry, this is the wealthy dentist podcast, right? Like, you don't get to a point where you have margins of time and money without being consistent and putting in some time. Like, you don't get there in 1 year. I don't care what, like, $250,000 a year, your first year at dental school, you ain't rich. Like, just understand that. Like, sorry. Like, I know you think you're a badass, like, you're not rich. But go like double that and then do it for like 20 years. Now we're talking. And I think the other thing that on the dental side of things, maybe there's just so much consolidation, and there's so much it just doesn't, there's not a lot of continuity in the dental space, right? Like, everybody gets together at their local dental societies, and they all kind of act like we're all buddies and we're all in, but at the end of the day, like, I think just there's still a lot of, I don't know, that goes down a little bit of a dark path. Like, I think it's we've kind of moved into the medical, we're moving in that medical space direction where there's a little more agendas. There's a little point in that is just like, be consistent, be ethical, become influential, be leaders. Like, I wish dentistry had a few more, like, there's some amazing people in dentistry. But I think on the bottom end, there's a lot of folks going into it because there's still a lot of people that think it's like, a great paycheck and it's blah, 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 blah. And it's like, man, it's a lot of work. It really is. And
Yeah.
just be consistent and be ethical and become a leader. And like, the rest of it will just take care of itself. And um, it's, if you're going in every day thinking it's a money thing, like, man, you're gonna be burned out by 40, and good luck.
Oh, wow. Wow. Are there any, I wanted to ask too, are there any mentors? I know your granddad and your dad got you, at least the mind, thinking about what you're doing now. Are there any other mentors that you could mention aside from
Yeah.
your dad and granddad?
I can distinctly remember, there's kind of two that stand out, and one I've spent a lot more time around than the other. But I can remember back in like 2013, sitting in my practice at that time and just thinking like, gosh, I know there's so much more that I'm capable of. I know there's so much more this practice is capable of. I just didn't know, like, I needed the coaching. I needed somebody to kind of help me get to that next level. And honestly, working with Jay Geyer and the Scheduling Institute was, shameless plug there, but Jay's a great dude. Like, it's because it's no nonsense, right? Like, he's not there to just go, I've known him for a long time, and it's not like we go hang out and have beers together, but there was always a sense of accountability that I felt to their programs and conversations that I had with him. We had a full 8 hour sit down conversation one day on a Friday at his offices in Alpharetta, over by Atlanta, and that was in 2016. And I still go back to the notes from that meeting, and that was 8 years.
Mm-hmm.
Um, he's not a dentist, but just the mindset around everything that he did and everything that he coaches on and everything that he preaches, and that was game changing for me. And that rubs some people the wrong way, but I need that. I need that, like, no bullshit. Your own problems are freaking created by you, and let's go fix this, and let's get better.
Mm-hmm.
The other one I would say, in the group space, probably would be Eric Roman, who was grew a big group called Carolina's Dentists in North Carolina, exited and now runs a program called One Life. And I got that term dark tunnel from him. And, I remember about a year and a half ago, I heard him speak in person for the first time, at a dentist entrepreneur organization event. And he was just real and authentic. He's like, look, this shit is hard. Like, I literally growing my group, like, I overdid it and I almost lost family. Like, you just like, it's just hard. And it was one of the first times somebody came out and said, I know where you're struggling and I know how hard it is, without just trying to make everything seemed like it was Instagrammable and life was just great and that it was like unicorns and rainbows, and because it's not. And I just respected the heck out of that. And I've talked to him a number of times since then. And I literally had a conversation with him like a week or two ago. I mean, I respected that so much. And he's a good guy. So I would say that probably those two, among others, but those two are probably the most prominent.
Brad. Humility, transparency, accountability. I mean, all of these superlatives I could think of that talks about your family. Ah, this is awesome, man. So I just wanted to say thank you so much for, spending time with us this afternoon in your busy day. And if there's someone that wants to contact you, how would they contact you, ask a question, or just talk to you about, what, some of this information that you've left upon us today?
Yeah. Either submit, you can go to our website, visiondentalpartners.com, and submit. There's a way to contact us there, but just me personally, Brad Hughes at visiondentalpartners.com is a great way to contact me directly. I'm open anytime. It's important. I contact folks all the time that are, especially people that are doing things a little bit maybe more than what I'm doing, a little higher level. Like, hey, how'd you get through this wall, or how'd you bust through that ceiling, or how would you handle this situation? So, I'm open anytime.
Thank you so much for spending time with us today. I appreciate the interview, and it's a wrap. Thank you so.
Yeah, I appreciate it, Ward. Thanks.
All righty.